Hello, everyone, and welcome to the workshop tonight, Everyday Intuition with Suzanne West. I'm Shireen Ash, a librarian at the Corte Madera Library, and I'm thrilled you all can join us for this great workshop today. I want to thank the Friends of the Corte Madera Library for their generous support of this workshop and many other programs that we put on through the Corte Madera Library. So before we get started, just a reminder to stay muted throughout the program so everyone can hear Suzanne really well. There'll be some time at the end for questions. So as you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat and I will read them out after the presentation, after the workshop, so that Suzanne can respond to them for you, okay? Other than that, we are, as I mentioned, recording this program. If all goes well, barring any unforeseen technical difficulties, it will be posted on our YouTube website within 2 weeks. So that's the Marin County Free Library YouTube channel. If you have any questions, you can email me. So now let me introduce Suzanne. Suzanne West is a writer, poet, professor of psychology, and intuition mentor. She is the author of Soul Care for Caregivers and the poetry collection Subterranean Light. She is a wonderful workshop leader, and I've been very pleased to partner with her over a decade or so. So with that, I will be quiet and Suzanne will take over. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Shireen. So welcome, everyone. I'd like to just give you an overview of what we'll be doing this evening. The topic is everyday intuition. And so I'm going to be teaching you, guiding you in 2 different techniques as ways to bring a question and then to take that question to your intuition or your wisdom. And I'll be guiding you very specifically. You don't have to have had any experience with this before. So we'll do 2 exercises, and then in just a minute, I'll just give you some guidelines for this evening, talk about intuition a little bit, and then at the end, we will take questions. And again, if any questions come up throughout, just put them in the chat and Shireen will read them at the end. So great to see everyone, and hello to Bobby and hello to Carolyn. Good to see you. All righty. So intuition. This is a favorite topic of mine. One of the ways that I think about intuition is that it is a quality, one of the faces of our deepest essential nature. And so I think of boundless wisdom. That's one way another way to name it, but you could call it your inner knowing, your inner soul. I like to call it boundless wisdom. And as boundless wisdom, what that means is that this deep wisdom is available to us at all times, 24/7, and we can bring any and all questions about our life to this intuition. So it's always there, kind of just waiting for us to open the door, pay attention. So it's really up to us. It's there right now. And all we have to do is find ways to access it. And there are so many ways to access this knowing. And some people really resonate with one way, let's say writing. One of our exercises tonight is we're going to do intuitive writing, just use writing as a way to look at a decision. Other people love and work with just meditation, somatic awareness, guided imagery. The other exercise we'll do this evening is guided imagery as a way to connect with this knowing. So, and again, there's no best way for anyone. What is true is that whatever you resonate with, what works for you is going to consistently work for you. And it may be that there are a number of ways that'll work with you. You don't know yet. And I also tell people that if we're not used to bringing their issues, their questions to this part of their mind, it can take time. And in this culture, a lot of us aren't really prepared to give the time it takes to cultivate something like this that can be subtle and that hasn't necessarily been supported in our educational background or our families or in the culture. So we are, in this culture, we are so guided by the mind. We are taught that that is the place we go, the thinking mind, the linear mind, or we could call it the rational mind. That's where we go when we have to make a decision, when we want to think about a relationship issue, when we want to look at our career. We were not taught that there is a deeper place that is not conditioned by our fears and our desires and our aversions, our personalities. We're not taught that in this culture, especially, to access and to trust this deeper knowing. And me just talking about it, unless you've had some experiences like this may be a bunch of gobbledygook, you know? It's like, what is she talking about? This other place within us. But if you've done any type of artistic work or meditative work or any kind of inner work, music, listening to music a lot, you likely know what it's like to go beyond just that more narrow, rigid, linear mind into other domains inside of you where you might get insights. You might get feelings that you couldn't access when you were just in your head. So, some of you, I would imagine, have had some of these experiences, but what I'm hoping to teach you, because I believe it and I live it so strongly, is that you can absolutely learn how to tap into this incredibly wise, generous, benevolent, beautiful force in you. This is one of the domains of your soul, of our deepest nature. And we don't have to wait for, insights or having little light bulbs go off in our head. This is here always. And all we have to do is find ways to get out of the way, to not be so Velcroed on to our thoughts, right? Being identified with the thinking mind is the biggest obstacle to being able to access this knowing and then to trust it. So we're talking about like a kind of a big transformation here. So it takes time. So I encourage you, or I will encourage you at the end, to repeat the exercises that we do tonight so that this can start showing up for you and you can learn to bring every single question to this part of you. And I really mean every single question. So let me just talk about a couple of other obstacles that people encounter with regard to both accessing, trusting, and then acting on their intuition. Because this isn't just about getting insights. This is about really getting guidance about the everyday in your life. This part of you guiding you to what to do about a relationship or whatever it is, a health issue, a simple decision like what kind of car to buy. So I will encourage you to really practice this, because it's easy in a workshop to have an experience. And, the whole field here this evening is going to be people tapping into this field. So the field is going to be here more explicitly. So you can have an experience here, but if you don't follow up at home, you may forget or just not have that easy access. Okay, and so let's see. Oh, another obstacle that I want to talk about, and I'd like to encourage you to keep this in mind when we do the very first exercise, is there's a tendency when people do an exercise like this, taking a question to their deep knowing, to be attached, even subtly, to a certain outcome. Like, let's say you're going to ask some guidance about dealing with a difficult relationship at work. Some part of you, possibly and maybe most likely, wants your intuition to tell you a certain thing. And so if we bring those attachments, I call this attachments to outcomes. If you bring that desire you have to be told what you want, you're going to be blocking your intuition. So I always invite people before they pose their question, to let go of what they want to hear, what they don't want to hear, and also to let go of even getting an answer. You may not get clarity in this moment. That could be because maybe your mind is so filled today, which is fine. Or maybe this isn't going to be the right method for you. So I encourage people to just be so open to whatever when they do the exercise, because the more open you are, the more allowing you are, being receptive, soft, open, letting go, the more likely it is that you're really going to possibly easily access your wisdom. I want to give you another example of a common expectation that people have about when they bring a question. So many of us are afraid of change on any level. Not everyone, but many people are afraid, especially of big changes. And so they will bring that fear and other fears into this process. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're asking about, you're thinking about two different professions, because you're at a point in your life where you're just going to explore new work opportunities. And you're afraid of, let's say, one of them, because it might mean you have to move, or you have to travel a lot, or something that you don't want. And so to the degree that you're afraid of making even small changes or really big changes, you're going to be blocking out on some level your wisdom telling you that that's really the right job for you. And then you'll probably have to do a lot more intuition exercises and start asking, what is this fear all about? How can I manage this move? Because you can bring all your questions to your intuition. But I really think this is an important point, so that you'll approach the two exercises tonight with such an incredible openness. Okay? So I think that's all that I need to say right now. We're going to do the first exercise. And first exercise, I like to call meeting your in inner wisdom, or you could call it, it's important that you use words that feel right to you. It could be meeting your soul, meeting your higher power, meeting your knowing. So I'm going to guide you in a process, a guided meditation. Some people see very clear pictures. So if I said, I'd like you to imagine that you're in a meadow, some people will see the meadow as vividly as if they're there. Not everyone sees images, and that has nothing to do with the effectiveness of the practice. So some people will have an olfactory experience, or they'll just see maybe some energetic shapes, or they'll just have a sense of knowing that they're there in a meadow and the feeling of that. So let your experience be whatever it is. All right. So what I'd like you to do before we begin, and we'll begin with a brief meditation to help you get to that place inside. I'd like you to choose a question, something that you would like guidance on that's alive for you in your life right now. It has a little caveat though. I told you that you can bring any and all questions to your wisdom, which you can. But if you're just starting to become familiar with accessing your wisdom, I would not ask the most triggering, emotionally activating, challenging question that you have, because you're going to be going inside. And right away, when you even start considering that very charged subject, things are likely to start closing down, and chemicals in the brain being activated in response to something very activating. So I like people to start with the simpler questions until they get to a place of familiarity with doing this where they can ask absolutely anything. So we all have a lot of questions we're sitting with. It could be something like a relationship, maybe not the one you've been in therapy about for 2 or 3 years, but maybe just a relationship with a family member. Maybe you want to ask, what can I do to improve communication with my cousin Norman, or with my friend June, or something like that? How can I experience less stress with this project I'm working on? So just take a minute or so now, and you're going to write down your question and have it be as clear as possible. And then I'll guide you in the next step. So take a minute now and just write it down. And I'd like you to raise your hand when you have your question. We still have a few people that don't have their hands up yet. So we'll get started in just about 30 seconds, half a minute. And if perhaps you just couldn't find a question, an option for you when you meet with your symbol of your wisdom is to just ask, what would you like to say to me now? And you'll just be trusting that it was okay that you didn't have a question and that you will hear something you need to hear. Okay? And before we do the meditation, our wisdom can show up to us in any form at all. It could be that you will just have a feeling in your heart or your belly, just a feeling of a calm or maybe a light, or you might see a dolphin or a blackbird or a stone or a container of water. Just be so open and also know that the next time you do this exercise on your own, your wisdom may show up in a different form. So just be open and curious. And if nothing shows up, that doesn't mean your intuition isn't there. You can really just trust that your intuition is there because it doesn't have to show up in any particular form. Okay? All righty. So now if you would find a comfortable either place to sit or way to sit, this will be about a 12 to 14-minute meditation. Okay? So find a place where you can feel comfortable. Then check in with your body so that you can really settle in, relax. And just feel yourself settling in and letting your eyes just gently close. Feeling your body making contact with the chair or the couch. And just letting yourself become present, really be here in this moment. Bring your attention to your feet, just wherever they are. Just get a sense of your feet making contact with whatever your feet are contacting. Just noticing that. Simple noticing. Now bringing awareness to your hands, sensing your hands. Sensing your hands, making contact with whatever your hands are contacting. And feeling yourself becoming more and more relaxed, more and more settled into this moment. Now I'd like to invite you to take 3 slow, long breaths. And as you inhale, just breathe in peace, quiet, openness. And on the outgoing breath, let go of any tension present for you that you'd like to let go of. The 3 slow, long breaths. And just beginning to feel yourself quiet inside. Just finding that place of peace and calm. Now, imagine that you are in a beautiful place in the natural world. It may be a place you've been to before, or a place that you imagine now for the very first time. Take a minute and really get a sense of the beauty that's around you. Just notice what you see. Are there any colors that are pleasing to you, that feel good to you? Are there any sounds in this place that are pleasing? Perhaps the sound of water, maybe some birds. Notice the quality of the air, the healing quality of this clean air. Notice the textures and shapes that are around you. Just let yourself touch whatever you might be drawn to touch. It feels good to you. Let yourself take in the goodness, the beauty, the healing energies of this wonderful place. And now, look around and find a comfortable place to sit. It could be the base of a tree. It could be just sitting in a wonderful field. Maybe there's an inviting flat rock to sit on. Or you sit by the edge of the river and dangle your toes in the water. But just find your spot. And let yourself just settle in to this spot. And in a minute or so, I'm going to ask you to very simply invite something that represents your inner wisdom to show up for you, to appear in a way that will make sense to you. Or perhaps it won't make sense. And as I said before, it could show up as any type of animal or bird or a certain branch or a ray of light. Just be open when you ask your wisdom to come and be with you and to help guide you with a question that you have. And just relax and just let yourself accept and be curious about whatever comes. So right now, just ask your wisdom, which is always available, to come and be with you. And if your mind wanders or you move towards thoughts, just notice that and let go. And just come back to this experience of sitting and connecting with your wisdom. And if, when something does come to you, just say hello and greet your wisdom in any way that feels right to you. Your wisdom will be communicating with you throughout your dialogue in a way that you will understand. And this can be like talking to a wonderful friend, where if you have a further question, if you need some clarification, just ask the way you would a dear friend. And when you feel ready, simply pose your question to this symbol of your inner knowing. And then just listen, open yourself, and just see what occurs. And if a dialogue ensues between the two of you, just go with that. Just be engaged and present with your wisdom who really wants to be here to help. And if your mind, thoughts get in the way, just invite them to fly away. Just come back to the moment. Just be with this for a couple more minutes. There may be another question about this that you'd like to ask. Or your wisdom may have more that wants to be said to you. And one more minute. when you feel complete, just find a way to say goodbye. Perhaps you might want to see if you can meet again, or just say whatever is natural, spontaneous to say, and see what your wisdom wants to communicate back to you. And then when you feel ready, just come back to feeling yourself sitting on the chair. Feel your feet making contact with the floor or whatever they're contacting. Get a sense of the room before you open your eyes. Maybe even stretch out a little bit. You're just bringing yourself right back to the present moment. Might even shake your hands a little. And take a nice deep breath. Just really feel yourself here, present, complete. If you would like to just take just a couple minutes to, if you feel like it, just make some brief notes about anything that you want to capture from the guided meditation. All right. So before I tell you about the next exercise, which will be a writing exercise, you will need 2 pieces of blank paper. I'd recommend that they be around 8.5 by 11, but just not something tiny like a Post-it. So you might want to take a minute and just, and a pen or a pencil. And then one practical matter, someone had said something earlier about not being able to see themselves. And I'm speaking this to Shireen right now. So if that person still wants to see yourself and can't, please put a note in the chat to Shireen because she's handling the Zoom. And if you have any questions about the guided meditation we did, you can put them in the chat, and in the end of our session this evening, we'll be answering as many of the questions as there's time for. And I am always available to if you wanted to email me to ask your questions if I didn't get to them, and I'm happy to respond. And Shireen will give you my email address at the end. All right, so now we're going to switch gears. And I call this exercise WRITE, WRITE choices. So here's what you're going to be doing. And all right, so first of all, I'm going to give you a minute or so when it's time before the exercise to write down the two options regarding this decision that you have on your plate. And I'll explain that to you in just a minute here. Again, I would like to recommend that this not be a very weighty and emotionally charged decision that you're making. You can do that later when you are really comfortable with accessing your intuition. For example, should I leave my partner or not, etc. One of those, which your intuition can definitely help you with, but not for an exercise where you're just learning how to do this. Okay. Or if you're familiar with your intuition, you know how to dial in, it's trustworthy to you already, then ask whatever you want. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to think of a decision that is up for you. It could be, let's say, whether or not to plant a whole new flower garden in your yard or not to put that aside for now. It could be, should you take a cooking class or a piano class? Or should you write about a family situation or write about the incredible time you had down in Big Sur? So we all often have a number of choices that we make. And the problem is, as I said before, that we often take those choices just to our linear mind. And sometimes that's great. Sometimes that works. But if it's a charged kind of a question, even something like what to write about, and you have all kinds of past experiences around it and fears that you can't even write and all this, that can really get in the way. So just want to speak that to you right now. So what you're going to be doing is this. So let's say you're deciding between an art class and a piano class. And so this is what you're going to do. You're going to put one piece of blank paper in front of you, and you're not even going to consider the other one. And then what you're going to do is you're going to imagine, let's say it's the piano class. You're just going to imagine, not with your head, but just with your whole being, without thinking of the other possibility. I'm going to sign up for this piano class. And instead of registering on the paper, either through words or maybe even little simple drawings, whatever comes to you, you're not going to register what your head tells you. You're going to be feeling, what does it feel like in my body when I imagine being in the piano class, when I imagine signing up for it? What energies are there? Do I feel a kind of flow, or do I feel uptight? Are there any images? You're looking for the different ways that your intuition is going to be signaling to you how you feel, not what you think about, how you feel on a deep level about making this choice. Okay, I'm going to give you an example of when I did this many years ago. And my mother asked me if she could take me to Europe. I'd never been to Europe before. And oh, it sounded wonderful and blah, blah. But I thought, I've been doing this for years and years and years. I'm going to do the intuition exercise about this question because I'm not sure. And so they were little drawings that came out, and I did a drawing of me going to Europe with Mom. And I thought, that's interesting. And I noticed when I did it, I felt kind of tight and I didn't feel happy and joyous. And so I put it aside. I knew not to evaluate it or just to do it. And then I let that go. I put the other paper in front of me and I just said, choosing not to go to Europe with Mom. I think it was in the fall or something. And oh my God, it was circles and it was the sunshine and it was amazingly different. And it won't always be this way. I'm giving you an example of something that was very black and white, very clear. And my whole body felt good, felt uptight with the other one. And so I took time to really think about this. And I did some other intuitive exercises to check on this. I talked to people about it. And then a big issue happened around my mom's health. And we couldn't go to Europe anyway. And so I thought, oh, that's what was going on. It wasn't that I didn't want to go, or it was that I wasn't going to be able to go. And my intuition was showing me that there were no signs of ill health in her. So anyway, that's an example. And I'm also telling you this because when you do yours, you do this practice now, it may not be as clear as that example was. And you just have to let that be. And what that can mean is, it can mean anything. It can mean that there's too many things maybe going on in your mind right now about something important. It could also mean that this particular exercise doesn't sing to you, or at least for now. So you can take your question about this decision to the guided imagery practice that we just did. And you can try it again on a different day. So don't worry about it. This is what I was talking about earlier. We just have to let go of the outcomes all the time when we do intuitive work. We don't have a clue what's going to happen. All right. So let me ask, first of all, if everyone is, well, no, I think I want to explain it a little bit more. So you have your two choices, the piano class, and all you're going to do is write any words, feelings, somatic sensations that are showing up for you as you really spend time just imagining that this is what you're choosing. You are not thinking about the other thing. So does that make sense to people? Okay. Then I'm going to give you 5 minutes for each of these. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put that aside and just let go of it. Don't even look at it. And then you're just going to take a minute to get centered. You're going to put the other piece of paper right in front of you. And you're going to imagine this is the choice that I'm making. You're not thinking about the other. And again, you're just going to write down what's going on in your body. Are there any colors? Are there any feelings? And these things can be subtle. Okay, so what you're doing is you're listening to other domains of you other than your head. And again, we're trained in this culture to just listen to our heads for answers. And that's just so small, so minimal of a place where we can get really profound and true information for our beings about the simplest, most practical things. So, is everybody ready? So take a minute and write down this choice. Just do 2 options. When you do it on your own, you could have 4 options, but we're going to keep it simple. So just write down what the 2 possibilities are around a choice. You can keep this very simple. And raise up your hand when you have written down the 2 options. Great. I'd like to invite you not to think too hard about this. If something isn't coming pretty easily, by now, just keep this some really simple thing, what you should have for dinner tonight, salmon or turkey. Okay, so we are going to start this exercise in a minute. 2 options. And I'm hoping that you have your 2 pieces of blank paper and a pen or a pencil or a crayon or whatever. Alrighty, so just take one of the pieces of paper and put that in front of you. And you're going to be bringing all of your attention simply to one of the options and not even think at all about the other one. And have that blank piece of paper in front of you. And just imagine that you are making that choice, and imagine it fully, mind, body, feeling, spirit. Really imagine, this is what I'm choosing. And then when things come to you, anything, put it on the paper, a scribble, a drawing, some words. And you can start that now. You're listening to your senses, your body, your energies in your body, your feelings. That's what's speaking. Keep bringing attention to imagining this is the choice you're making and not thinking about it with the mind. One more minute. Right? And now just put this aside. Ideally, so you can't even see it. You might want to even turn it over. And bring the other blank piece of paper over to you. And before we consider the second option, let's just take a minute here and take a nice deep breath. And just let yourself let go of the considerations you were just having about the other option. You might want to move around a little bit, and you might want to take another deep breath and just let go of whatever you may still be feeling, what's going on with you about the other choice. Just really release it. Now you have the next and last blank piece of paper right in front of you. Now you're going to imagine as fully as possible, mind, body, feeling, spirit, that this is the choice that you are making. And again, you're not thinking about it. You're just really imagining, like play acting. This is the choice I'm making. And notice, what does this feel like? What does this look like? What goes on in your body when you imagine this choice? Just what comes up for you without any evaluation? Just noticing senses, energy, feelings, images, somatic experience. If your mind wanders, just bring it back to being fully engaged with choosing this and seeing what comes out on the paper. Few more minutes. If you happen to already feel complete, just look at the 2 pages and just jot down anything you notice about differences in particular, or just anything that stands out to you. And for those of you who aren't yet complete, just let yourself be complete now and take a minute or so and jot down anything that stands out to you when you look at the 2 drawings, any differences, just anything that comes, and you'll have just a minute for that. You will be able, of course, to spend as much time as you want with this after the workshop. And if you have any questions about anything from either exercise or anything that I've talked about, just feel free to put them in the chat, and Shireen will present them to me.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to say that at this point, there are no questions. So think a little bit. I did put Suzanne's email and address and Suzanne's website in the chat. I will do that again, so it's kind of fresh and easy to get to. But Suzanne's website is very easy. It's just suzannewest.com. And you can find the contact information there and sign up for Suzanne's newsletter. And there's also some great articles you could read on Suzanne's website about intuition, among other things. And then there's Suzanne's email, suzannewest888@yahoo.com, if you have questions later. But if any questions came up for you now, please feel free to type them out.
Okay. I'm going to correct one little thing. Years ago, I wrote a newsletter. I no longer write a newsletter. So if you sign up on the mailing list, you'll be receiving a poem of mine each month. And I am a poet, among other things. And then I write some questions if you choose to contemplate things from the poem at the bottom of it. There's no charge for anything. And then I also just started teaching. Okay, I will address this in a minute. I just started teaching some 3-session Zoom courses. I haven't done that for a very long time. And so I'm going to teach 5 of those each year, and they're 3 sessions. So you'll get an announcement about those. But I'm not someone who wants to flood your inbox. I can't stand it when people do that to me. So
thank you, Suzanne, that clarification. Do you want me to read this, or are you reading it yourself?
Well, now I can't see it. So could you read it?
Sure.
I just saw it briefly.
Mary says, I have a really hard time getting out of my mind and into my body, feeling, spirit. Any recommendations? I know meditation can help.
Great, great question.
Mhm.
Important question. I imagine a lot of people have that question. So first of all, meditation is a wonderful practice, and there's so many different ways to meditate. There's no right way. People should just experiment with some different forms of meditations and sometimes the philosophy that goes with them to see what works for them. But I am one of those people who believes that meditation, sitting meditation, standing meditation, walking meditation, is not the only way to learn how to free up your identification with your mind. And I've worked with many people over the years with this who have all this guilt about not meditating and not being able to stay with it. And, oh, I'm never going to wake up. I'm never going to get free because I hate meditation. I can't do it. And I think it's a very limiting view. So what I have people do, and what I have always done since I stopped meditating, I meditated for years, and then I started experimenting with doing things that I love doing, no shoulds, finding things that you love doing, that when you do them, you feel good and you're not in your head. And that will have the same effect over time as meditation does. I haven't done formal meditation for years. My main form of meditation now is I do very detailed little collages and drawings just for myself, I don't do anything with them. And I find that I have to be so present, and not in a rigid way. I have to be present in a very relaxed way, or I go right outside of the line in this teeny little drawing. And it is absolutely, it does everything that meditation did for me before. And this can be anything. This can be going out in the forest and really being with the trees. It can be cooking. It can be playing a musical instrument. It can be listening to music. And you may have a whole bag of things. And on any given day, you say, okay, I have a half hour or a 45-minute block of time right now, and I can do what I want with it. And so what I've always done is I just tune in. I just quietly ask myself, what do I want to do? What feels pleasurable that isn't a head activity? And it can be reading spiritual poetry. It can be literally anything, petting your cats, doing your yoga. Just have the list be so wide open, and then just experiment. Don't take my word for it. Just see what happens. And maybe if you start small, because what people sometimes do with goals, even wonderful goals like this, is it becomes another should. Oh my God, I've got to do that. And I've got to do that for a full half hour. And all of a sudden you're rebelling against something so beautiful that you always love to do. So you have to be careful that you don't turn this into a should, and just experiment. And it can take some time to really start shifting you out of your head. But your senses will start awakening. You're likely to start just feeling more because you're not going here into the monkey mind 20 hours a day, or however many hours a day we go into our heads. So start small, experiment. If doing watercolors or playing the violin isn't it, make a list of all the things that you enjoy doing that aren't linear, rational oriented. And I can almost promise you, I don't like to do that really, but I've seen this work with so many people and with myself, it's unreal. I don't even consider meditating anymore. It's like, no. Okay. That's a long answer, but you can tell I have a lot of enthusiasm about that. Um,
Thank you.
oh,
There was
what?
another question that came in, and I
Okay.
presume this was to the response to the last exercise, but Jill writes, one was negative and one was positive. How do I know it's not just negative thinking? Do we need more clarification, or can you respond to that?
So one was negative. Oh, how do I know? The question I think is, how do I know that's my intuition
How do I
and
know it's
not,
not just negative thinking? Not just
how do I
negative
know it's
thinking.
just not my mind
Yeah.
being negative? How do I know that it's my intuition speaking? Can I ask, Jill, is that what you're asking? Or is
Jill,
it something
do you
else?
want to type in a quick response?
Or
I
you
mean,
could even ask verbally if you want to.
yeah, if you want to unmute yourself, it's nice and quiet. Is Jill still here? Yes. So that is the
Yes,
question.
meaning that.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a huge question that almost everyone has when they start awakening their intuition, which is, how do I know that this is really my intuition? And it's not my fear, and it's not my wishful thinking, it's not my head. And that is a very meaningful question. And I don't have a quickie answer for you because it really takes time to really discern the difference. I can all but promise you that if you start listening to your intuition more, bringing your questions to it, you are going, and then you start acting on it. That's very important to act on it because it's guiding you to do something. You're going to start knowing over time and feeling the difference between that and your mind or your personality or your big fears or all of that. But I'm going to say something else. Some things that you can pretty well count on with regard to knowing if it's intuition or if it's your ego or your mind or your personality. First of all, your intuition, because this is your divine self, this is your soul, will never speak to you like your critical parent or your inner critic. It will not criticize you, judge you, berate you. That is guaranteed. If you're hearing that voice, that's one of your subpersonalities, or that's your fear-based mind or your egoic mind. It will also not have any attachment or demand around, you've got to do this. It may speak to you or express to you very strongly, like, don't step off that curb right now. Don't take that flight. You know, many people back on the Twin Towers talked about getting intuitive messages. They didn't always use that language, that they knew not to go to work that day or not to get on that flight or whatever. Not the flight, but not to go to work that day. So it may very well always, its information to you is always in your best interest. It will not sound like the negative mind. It will never berate you, judge you, and it is not attached to you following it. I'm trying to think about anything else. Oh, another very important thing. It may tell you that you are the light, or you are a sacred being, or something that you truly are on a spiritual level. You know, you love is your true nature, that it will never make you special. It will never say, but you are the most loving person in your neighborhood or in your city. That is narcissism, that is grandiosity, and your intuition has none of those qualities. So, those are just some little tips. And the other thing is just needing to keep experimenting. And that was something I was going to give all of you as a guideline. If you really want to keep cultivating this in yourself, you learn 2 practices tonight. And the more you do them, but not with a big should, you're just going, they are ways to cultivate your connection to intuition. And there's a wonderful book that I've recommended to numerous people. It's written back in 79, but it's one of my favorites. It's written by a transpersonal psychologist. It's called Awakening Intuition. And her name is Frances Vaughan. I think that Shireen was going to put it in the chat. Vaughan. And she has lots of exercises in there. Her understanding is psychologically sound. She's very intelligent, but it's not too academic at all. It's very readable. And I happened to know her back in the day, and she was an amazing woman. And her husband was an amazing man. So she knew what she was talking. She knows what she's talking about. She's no longer alive. Then on, in terms of my articles, I have my articles on my website are all free, of course, and I have a number of them on intuition. So with some techniques, etc., in there, and on other subjects as well. So let's see, let's see if I had anything. Oh, here's something. This is important. Before you do one of your intuition exercises, either what we did tonight or something you get from Frances's book, check in with yourself and see what kind of space you're in. If you are really worked up about something, let's say something, some online problem or something, that would be me, some techie problem. It's not a great time to try to get into a receptive place so that you can hear your intuition. So just notice, how open are you? How relaxed are you? If you're not, take 5 or 10 minutes to do what I call a bridging activity. Something that feels good, but maybe it's going and playing with the dog or your grandkids, or doing some stretching, listening to some great music. Do something to shift you so that you're not so uptight and in your head so much. And also then, even after the bridging activity, before you actually start doing one of these exercises, take a minute and you can repeat what we did. Sense your feet, sense your hands, take some nice deep breaths. So that's called an induction. The other thing I was talking about is called a bridging activity. Okay?
Suzanne,
And I think there was, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say we have one more question before we end tonight. And Ruth writes, so emotions are a critical part of intuition, right?
No, not necessarily. So not necessarily at all. So intuition, the place that it's coming from, it's not coming from the emotions, literally. But the intuition is coming from that vast field, that boundless field of awareness that is really who we are. We all talk about it differently. There's no right way. We could say it's coming from the divine that is within you, or if you're Christian, it's coming from the Christ part of you. Now, so emotions don't necessarily have anything to do with it. One person may not be a strong, emotionally oriented person, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But one thing that I have seen happen over the years with people who start opening to these other domains that are not linear is that other parts of them that they've been cut off from. It could be the body, it could be the emotions, it could be the senses. But can you just imagine if you stop living out of your head, how much more of your whole human beingness might start becoming available to you? Because that's exactly what happens. It's like you're no longer running the show of your life from this very limited, often tight, reasoning mind. And it's not about getting rid of the mind. No, it's about having a wonderful mind. I mean, people couldn't write books, or we couldn't even be talking if we didn't have, or having plans. But we don't want the mind to run the show. We want to be more balanced. And so that starts happening to people when they start loosening the fixations of the mind. So I hope that answered the question about emotions. All right. Any other last questions? Okay, so whenever I give another one of these workshops through the library, it might be in a few months, I don't know when it will be. You'll get an announcement about it from the library. It will be, I am going to do another one on intuition. It's going to be creativity and intuition. So just exploring the whole topic of creativity, creative blocks, how intuition can help you awaken and strengthen creativity. And creativity does not have to be have anything to do with the arts. You know, we can be creative or not as a teacher, as a parent, as a cook. So it's just going to be that whole topic, creativity and intuition, sometime in the unknown future. All right.
I just put my email in the chat
good.
as well. My work email is sash@marincounty.org. If you're not on our program email list to find out about programs, you could send me your email and I'll add you. I send out a monthly email listing all the programs the Corte Madera Library is doing. So that way you'll know. I mean, typically we do these workshops with Suzanne, you know, in a 2 or 3 month interval. So I'm kind of thinking it would be May or June. But if you want to find out more, just let me know. And I think we will call it a night and end this.
Oh, I thought about
else?
one other thing.
Okay.
Because you're recording it and you will likely be putting it up, if people want to see it again, can you tell them how
Sure.
they can access that?
Yeah, it's a great reminder. So again, it's the Marin County Free Library YouTube channel where we post our talks, our adult programs. Most of our programs are posted there. unless there's some unforeseen technical issue, but typically not. But I have learned to put in a disclaimer. So it usually takes about 2 weeks to get edited and posted. So you can just go to YouTube and type in Marin County Free Library, and all our recordings for all ages actually will come up. And again, if you ever have any questions, please just email me directly about library stuff, and I'm happy to respond to you and help you out to the best of my ability. But thanks, Suzanne, for that good reminder.
Thank you so much, Shireen. You are just such an incredible help. I mean, it's just, I'm so thankful and grateful for you.
And I'm grateful for your sharing your wisdom and experience with everyone. I think you're getting a lot of thank yous, and I will say for both of us, you're all very welcome, and I hope you have a great evening. Stay warm and cozy. And with that, we'll say good night. Take care, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Good night. Thank
Take
you.
all. Care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Bye.
Yeah. Be well.
Bye.